All right, let's do this. Ready to dive deep into oak kitchen cabinets.
Ooh, yeah, those honey-colored classics.
Love them or hate them, tons of folks have them
Yeah,
and want to change them.
definitely a popular project.
So whether you're DIYing or just curious, today's deep dive is for you. We've got this super detailed step-by-step guide. We're going to break it down.
Add in those little pro tips, too, stuff that makes a big difference.
Right, like I was looking at this guide and step one already, bam, remove everything.
Yeah, that's key. Gotta emphasize that.
Doors, drawers, hardware. I could just picture someone skipping this.
Oh, thinking I'll just tape around the hinges and then disaster.
Uneven coverage, drips, nightmare.
Exactly. This guide stresses a clean slate for a reason. You're making a perfect surface for sanding, priming, no way to mess that up.
Makes sense. So then sanding. 2 rounds of sanding seems like a lot.
I get why people would think that, but each step has a purpose. First, you use a coarser grit, like a 120.
Okay, so rough it up a bit.
Yeah, helps the primer grip really well, like Velcro.
Not just smoothing then, it's about adhesion.
You got it. Then, after the primer's dry, finer grit, like a 220, to smooth everything out before paint. That's how you get that pro look.
Almost like glass, I bet.
Exactly. And don't forget, dust removal after ECH sanding. Tack cloth is your best friend.
Okay, prepped, sanded. Now we're getting to the primer. This guide is adamant about oil-based primer for oak, even though, like, oil can be messy, right?
Oak's kind of tricky. It can bleed tannins, those natural substances, and they can discolor your paint over time.
So it's like seeping through.
Basically, oil-based primer, something like Kilds, acts as a barrier.
Locking those tannins in. Wow, the science behind painting cabinets, right?
For real. Now, speaking of science, paint selection. Guide recommends acrylic urethanes.
Acrylic urethanes, I'm not super familiar with those.
Think, like, you're done painting, barely any wide brush strokes. That's acrylic urethanes. They level out so nicely.
Oh, so they dry super smooth.
Durable, too. Perfect for cabinets. And a lot of brands have lines made specifically for cabinets, like Benjamin Moore's Cabinet Coat. That's in the guide.
Satin finish, right? That seems to be the go-to for cabinets.
Yeah, not too shiny, not too flat. Good balance. Durable, washable.
Okay, so we've prepped, primed, painted. Are we done?
Not so fast. Here's where the guide emphasizes patience. It recommends waiting a full 30 days for the paint to cure.
30 days. But it feels dry way sooner, doesn't it?
It might feel dry, but it takes time to reach maximum hardness, chemical resistance. Like, you wouldn't want to stack heavy stuff on a freshly painted surface.
Good point.
So yeah, no harsh cleaning products during that 30-day period. Gotta protect that masterpiece.
Absolutely. All right, so we've laid the groundwork here.
Foundation is strong.
But there's a lot more to discuss, like the actual painting techniques.
And some troubleshooting tips, too, because things happen.
For sure. So stay tuned for part 2, folks. We'll be back to dive even deeper into this cabinet refresh journey. Back for more cabinet action. We're finally ready to paint.
The moment we've all been waiting for.
I feel like grabbing a brush and just going for it, but...
Hold your horses. The guide recommends a brush, a roller.
Oh, interesting. So, like, each has its purpose.
Exactly. Think of an angled brush as your detail tool, for corners, edges, all those fiddly bits.
Okay, precision work.
Yeah. Now, the roller's your workhorse for those big, flat surfaces, doors, drawer fronts, that kind of thing. It'll help you lay down a nice even coat.
I can see that. What kind of roller, though?
The guide recommends foam rollers specifically. They create this really smooth finish, no fuzzies.
Oh, the fuzzies. The bane of my existence.
Right. Okay, another key tip, thin coats. I know it's tempting to slap it on thick and get it over with, but...
Yeah, I'm guilty of that. What's the problem with thick coats?
Imagine a cake, right? Each layer needs to dry properly before you add the next one. Otherwise, you get a soggy mess.
I see where you're going with this.
Same with paint. Thin coats dry evenly, no drips or sags, and you get a much smoother finish.
Got it. Patience is key. What about working in sections?
That's another great tip from the guide. It's all about preventing the paint from drying too quickly.
Right, so you don't end up with like a patchy look.
Exactly. Focus on one area at a time, all the upper cabinets on one wall, for example.
Makes sense. It's like breaking it down into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Absolutely. And speaking of making things easier, ventilation is super important, especially when working with those oil-based products.
Yeah, I know it's important for safety reasons.
Yeah.
But does it affect the paint job itself?
Definitely. Good ventilation helps the paint dry properly and evenly. Those fumes need to escape, otherwise they can get trapped and mess with the finish.
Wow, I never thought of that. Open the windows, it is.
Exactly. Speaking of safety, wear gloves. I know it sounds obvious, but it's easy to forget in the heat of the moment.
For sure. Oil-based primer is not something you want on your skin.
Not fun to clean up. All right, before we jump into troubleshooting, let's talk expectations. This project, it takes some time.
Yeah, it's not a weekend warrior kind of thing.
Right, it's multi-step, lots of detail work. Patience is your friend here.
True that. Now, let's be real. Even with the best laid plans, things can go wrong. What are some common painting problems and how do we fix them?
Drips happen, even to the best of us. Best advice: catch them early while the paint's still wet. Just smooth it out with your brush.
Easy enough. What about if it's already started to dry?
Then you might need to sand it down a little once it's fully cured and touch it up with a bit more paint.
Okay, good to know. Brush strokes. How do we avoid those?
Thin coats, remember, that's your first line of defense. And use a good quality brush and roller. And try to maintain a wet edge overlapping your strokes as you go.
So it's like a continuous flow of paint, no hard lines.
Exactly. Okay, let's talk cleanup. Not the most exciting part, but we gotta do it. First, brushes and rollers. If you're using water-based paint, just rinse them with warm water until it runs clear.
Easy peasy. What about oil-based paint?
You'll need mineral spirits or paint thinner for that. Remember, safety first, gloves, and good ventilation.
Safety always comes first. Paint splatters. I always seem to find a way to get paint on myself.
Quick action is key. Wipe it off with a damp cloth right away. A little soak and water should take care of most spills.
And what about those heart-stopping moments when you drip paint on the floor? Or worse, the countertop.
Drop cloths, my friend. Drop cloths are your best friend, but if you do have a spill, wipe it up ASAP.
Okay, so quick thinking is essential.
Absolutely. Oh, and one last thing, super important. Dispose of paint waste responsibly. Don't pour it down the drain.
Right, got to protect the environment. Wow, we've covered a lot. I feel like I'm ready to tackle anything now.
You are. We've prepped, we've painted, we've cleaned.
What more could there be?
Well, there are a few final thoughts, and I'm sure you have some questions.
Back for the final code. Deep divers. Honestly, feeling pretty good about tackling my own cabinets now.
Yeah, it's amazing what a little info can do.
Right, from that meticulous prep all the way to cleanup.
And not forgetting those painting techniques, of course.
Definitely not. But throughout it all, it seems like patience is the key.
Oh, absolutely. Every step of the way. Prepping, letting the paint cure, the whole 9 yards.
And, there's something kind of nice about that.
It's true. Good things take time.
Like a slow, steady transformation.
Yeah.
Not just for the cabinets, for us too.
Learning new skills, taking our time. It's rewarding.
Totally. So big picture now, why even de-do this project? I mean, besides the obvious, making your kitchen look awesome.
Well, think resale value. Fresh cabinets can bump that up a lot.
It's like an instant kitchen facelift.
Without the full Reno price tag.
Yeah.
And we're being eco-conscious too, giving those cabinets a new life instead of just tossing them.
Plus, there's nothing like that DIY satisfaction.
Oh, totally. Standing back, admiring your work, knowing you did that. Priceless.
So as we wrap this up, any last words of wisdom for our listeners ready to take on their own cabinet refresh?
I'd say approach it with a sense of adventure. Don't be scared to make mistakes.
Mistakes happen. That's how we learn.
Exactly. There's tons of resources out there too. Experts, online tutorials, even that friend who's always DIYing.
Never hurts to ask for help.
Nope. And most important of all, have fun.
Yes. Let your personality shine through those color choices, finishes. It's your kitchen.
Well said. I think we've officially covered it all.
Deep dive complete. Hope you all enjoy the journey.
We went deep, but that's the point, right? Giving you the knowledge to tackle this with confidence.
Confidence and creativity. Remember, right knowledge, right tools, bit of patience. You can create a kitchen you absolutely love.
And hey, if you have questions along the way, you know where to find us.
Share your experiences too. We love to see those cabinet transformations. Until next time, happy painting, everyone.